people.
Okay. Is everyone here? No,
Seems
Ryan is not.
small.
Hello.
Swix, can you see us? Can you hear me?
I can. We have our guest, but he's waiting in the wrong room. I think I gotta go fix it.
Okay. I'm gonna ping
Uh,
people so yeah. Who's ending up being the guest, just so I include it in the announcement?
yeah, but yeah, good. It's Ryan from AmpCode. I just figured like I saw you guys talking about AMP, so I was like, oh, I know AMP.
Yeah, no, I think that's
um,
great.
and he can talk about how it works, how you use it, just general trends. He also knows. Uh, I mean, yeah, he's been part of the Lean Space crew for a bit. Oh, Ryan's
Hey,
here.
hey, hey.
There he
What's up,
is.
Ryan?
Hello, hello.
What's happening? Swix, you're just walking around.
Yeah, I'm like running around face to face today. So like I think I'm mostly gonna stay silent, but I wanted to introduce you.
Thank you.
And this is the AI in Action crew. It used to be we only talk about Cursor every single week, but it's since broadened out, which has been very nice. Yeah. Cable, I don't know how else you want.
Yeah, I mean that's the focus of this discussion group is generally like using AI in production purposes, and over time it has evolved more and more to coding tools because that's one of the most high traction areas that we all get exposed to. So we've done a lot of coding tool stuff. I know Manuel and I have been especially Manuel probably have been somewhat power users of AMP at different times, and we've been doing different amounts of that. He's a power user. I follow in his footsteps. But we've definitely done some amount of exploring and other things, but other folks here may or may not have experience with it. So yeah, I think of interest to this crowd, techniques for use. Um, Also, like behind the scenes, we have a lot of people here who care about, how do you design agents? How do you design, prompting structures? How are you loading context or deciding what context is relevant? Like all of that stuff. But yeah, I will hand over to you. I'll go off screen, but I can monitor the comments. So if people ask questions, I can bring them to verbal, or if you'd rather self-monitor, totally fine.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Swix. Appreciate it. Should I be primarily watching the Zoom chat or Discord
Uh,
or both?
for this, it'll be in Zoom chat, and as I said,
Okay.
I can watch that and just bring it to verbal if you like. But
Oh, great. Cool. Nice. And I'm kind of a on-camera guy. So like if anyone else wants to join on camera and just kind of hang out, that's great too. And you can always just unmute and hey, Scott. Oh, you have a cool guitar plus something on your TV or something. I like it. Steve, nice to see you. Cool. Leonardo, hey, good to see people. Yeah, it's just kind of fun if people want to go on camera, like, hey, we're people. Cool. If that's what you want, neato. If you don't, that's fine too. So, Manuel, good to see you. Cool. As Swix and Kevin said, my name's Ryan Carson. I started off I got a computer science degree because my dad brought home an Apple IIe computer, and I was like, man, that's cool. And then my high school calculus teacher said I should take the programming class, which was Pascal. So if you can read that, that's the Apple Pascal manual. And just fell in love with programming because you can create stuff. It feels like you summon, from nothing, and kind of went on to build some startups, sell some startups, teach a bunch of people how to code. And then after my last company was acquired, took some time off and then fell back in love with programming again. Because I hadn't programmed and pushed a prod in a long time because I had CTOs and VP of Engs and engineering managers, and I lost touch with the code. So retaught myself TypeScript and Next.js and all through ChatGPT initially. And I use Cursor every day for like 3 hours at night while my kids were sleeping. And I've told the Cursor team I've never been more engaged with a product in my whole life. And through that process, started building another startup. And it's for a very niche market. It's about divorce in Connecticut because my sisters got divorced and I wanted to make divorce less terrible. So I'm building that. And through that process, someone said AMP, and I was like, I've never heard of AMP. Like, what is that? And I was kind of annoyed because I felt like I knew every tool. And I started using AMP. I'm like, damn, this is a pretty good agent. And started messaging Quinn, the CEO, and telling him what I liked and what I didn't like. I hated that there was no model selector at first. I hated that you didn't have to accept your diffs. I was like, what the fuck? You just changed my code. What's happening? And then just fell in love with the tool. And then he said, you know what? Why don't you join as builder in residence and build your startup here, and use AMP and tell people what it's like. So that's what I'm doing. So happy to share, it's fascinating being at a company that's building an agent, right? And I've committed, I think I've had like 6 PRs merged now to the core AmpCode myself, and it's fascinating to see how the sausage is actually made behind the scenes. So I can share and talk about all sorts of stuff, but I'm not sure exactly what's helpful or interesting. Kevin, you probably are more in tune with what the group might want to dive
I mean,
into.
I think I would encourage folks to put what you're interested in the chat, but I'm going to jump in and I want to know how the sausage is made. I mean,
Let's go.
also working on building agents and agentic tools and things like that. So, don't give away any core business secrets. This stuff will be on the internet soon, right?
Yeah.
But
Well,
Give it away. Give it all away.
I mean, but this is the thing, like we're very open. And one of the reasons I joined AMP is because Quinn and Torsten and Byung did a podcast episode, and they said, we have no moat. Like there is no moat, everybody. Just the surprise, like building an agent is like 300 lines of code, and the rest is just insane amounts of elbow grease, right? And I was like, oh, interesting. So, I took Torsten's code. It was, I think it was in Go, and I used AMP to translate it to TypeScript, and I built an agent, right? So that's the first thing I'll say is that there really is no moat. And I think anyone who tells you there is lying. It's just it's a huge knife fight to try to figure out how to build the best agentic code tool. Now, but what do we do? That's interesting that I can talk about. Cool. I love AI note takers. Nice. I'm just reading this real quick. So Mark says, also interested to hear the inside story of how you see different models perform, internal benchmarks, Opus, Sonnet, GPT-5, etc. Okay. So, and I just recorded a podcast about this and it's going to come out. So I'll share some of those things. The first thing that will probably surprise you and maybe dismay you or not surprise you if you're doing this stuff every day is there is no hardened evals. I hate to break it to you. I wish there was, but there's not. And that sounds almost irresponsible. Like, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean there's no hardened evals, right? But when you're building a tool like for yourself, right? So we're all engineers. It's a little different than building, say, a support agent, right? That deals with, grocery, orders, right? That you can have a hardened test eval suite on that. But what we find is that it's very hard to have qualitative evals. Okay, so I'll back up and say, yes, we do have evals, like we have some. That would be insane if we had nothing. And, think about performance, right? So pure model performance, which is mostly about inference, like that stuff's easy to measure. We've specifically decided to fall back, and serve from Vertex, right? If Anthropic goes down, for instance, which I think is just, because we care about our devs, right? And that does happen occasionally. So we fall back to Vertex, more than you think. And then you can, time to first token. These are all like really easy things. So of course we do that. And so the next is trying to figure out, well, like what about tool call distribution? Okay. So when we use Sonnet 4 versus GPT-5, which is our primary choice right now versus O3. So the models that we really use a lot are Sonnet 4 for the primary agent. And then we have a tool called the Oracle, right? So one of the fun things I think about AMP that sold me on it was it's kind of delightful to summon the Oracle. And it may seem kind of kitschy or something, but the idea is you just say, hey, why don't you ask the Oracle, you know, what it thinks about this PRD or this implementation plan. And all it is a tool call to O3. And O3 doesn't use any tools to, you know, like edit files. It's really just a thought partner. And that gives this, I think it's kind of a lovely DX where you're like, it feels like walking over to a senior engineer's desk and saying, hey, you know, what do you think about this? And then the tokens it return will then be used by Sonnet 4, which is the primary driver. And what you know, the other thing that bothered me at first was no model selector, because I used to be in Cursor, you know, and the Cursor team just gave me infinite credits, so I was just on Sonnet 4 Max the whole time. And so, but occasionally I would have this kind of model, you know, paralysis, like, wait a minute, like, I wonder if I should be on on Gemini 2.5, you know, Pro Max, you know, and at AMP, they just said, we're just going to highly tune the system prompt and all the elbow grease for Sonnet 4. And we're not going to give devs any choice because we think the model harness, it's really hard to tweak it to get it right. And I'm just like talking. So I hope this is valuable. I don't know. Kevin, like interrupt me if you're like, this is boring.
Yeah, so far so good. You've got lots of questions queuing up. People like it, so just keep talking.
Okay, so yeah, tell me if you think this is dumb and just interrupt me and put that in the comments. But this is all stuff I've learned since joining, and I found it quite interesting, right? So the AMP folks, you know, really customize the model harness, and I call it elbow grease, but it's just all the commits around the DX. Like that's annoying when the agent does that, right? Okay, how can we elbow grease that out, right? And it's not, most of it is not system prompt manipulation. Most of it is slight tooling changes. So Sonnet 4, they just put a lot of effort into making it really good, which is why I think when I used AMP, I was like, oh, this is lovely. Like I can't tell you why it's lovely, but it's lovely, right? So then I came in, and I think on like the sixth day I was there, GPT-5 dropped. And so Camden is our head of models. He, you know, had been using GPT-5 forever, like as long, you know, a long time before it was released, and was testing it. And, you know, we found that the things you all found, right? Okay, it's hesitant. It's not very good at tool calling. It's very intelligent, but, you know, you got to prod it a lot. And so we've only made it available with a flag on the CLI. So if you run amp try GPT-5, you can try it. And I even tuned the system prompt myself, and I'm still not super happy with it. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Like I have a feeling we're going to end back up on Sonnet 4. And Swix, I thought it was interesting your post about, or your tweet about how it seems like GPT-5 might be the greatest router of all time. And I wonder if that's kind of how this will play out. But we'll see how it goes.
Hang on. I never said greatest router of all time. Whoa, that's
Did
way too generous.
Did I just totally make that up?
Yeah, you hallucinated that. I said it has a router. And how did that go to greatest router of all time? You said that.
That's hilarious. I literally read that and I thought that's what you meant. So
No.
I did hallucinate that. I love it. See, people can hallucinate too. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a minute and read some of these comments to make sure.
To fill in the blanks while Ryan's reading, I like the router direction, but it obviously came out very buggy, and it will continue to be buggy. I think it will probably take like 2 years to figure out the router direction. But the bigger question is it the right direction? And I think it is, right? So
yeah,
I can be positive without being a show.
Yeah, I love it. So how do you validate prompt engineer eval tool description prompts? Yeah, we'll talk more about this. Tool management lessons. Yeah, what does one mean by hard eval? Okay, I mean, what I mean by hard eval is like you have evals that you trust, right? So I mean, we can run all sorts of evals. You know, for instance, we could look in AMP. We have something called threads, which is kind of fun because you can actually see various people's conversations with AMP. You can read them. That's great. But obviously, we have all this in a database. So we could run an eval that that uses an LLM to judge what percentage of these threads seem successful from the dev's user point, right? And that would literally give you a percentage, right? You know, maybe we'd use a high reasoning model on that, like a GPT-5. That's one eval, but it's not hardened because it's not deterministic, right? So this is the whole problem with this. Everything we do is nothing is deterministic. So you end up with non-deterministic evals that you're not quite sure if they work. Now the other hard thing is all of us that are building these engineering, agentic tools, you cannot predict what all of your customers are actually writing code in or their environments. We have a smaller surface area because we don't have an IDE, but we have a VS Code plugin and we have a CLI, right? So I'm not trying to cop out and say, well, we don't care about evals. I'm just saying it's actually much harder than you think to figure out which model is better. Manuel says, is the Oracle just a model selector with a cool sounding name? Sorta. I mean, yeah. But it's more fun to say the Oracle than it is to, drop down 03. I mean, there's a system prompt in there. Obviously, there's some elbow grease, but I don't want to make it more magic than it is. So sub-agent orchestration. Yep, exactly. Yep. Felt like the most lovely until GPT-5 plus cursor agent combo dropped, and they have stolen my heart. Oh, Kevin, so you love, do you use cursor agent on the CLI?
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that was honestly, so I have never been a VS Code person. When Cursor was the only way and it was only VS Code, like I used it begrudgingly and it was painful.
Yeah.
When I got introed to AMP, actually I tried it in VS Code and it didn't work for me well. And then Manuel showed me how to run it in the CLI and I never looked back. But then Cursor Agent, they dropped the CLI tool and they said, hey, guess what? For a week, GPT-5 is free.
Yeah.
Go and try it. They're like, all right, great, free tokens. Because the one downside of AMP, y'all run up a bill.
I
mean, it's fine. I get our company to pay for it and it's good. But it is, I also manage that budget. So I am watching it.
Yeah. That's an interesting
yeah.
point. So I feel like that's something that no one's talking about, which is kind of interesting. So we don't mark up the tokens. So we pass through the exact token price that we get. What we do is we get a slight discount from Anthropic, right? So we make a small margin on each token, but we do not mark it up for you. So what you pay for AMP is the actual cost of the tokens.
Totally. And that's the direction I think we all are going to need to go, right? Like that was not a
wasn't a jibe. I know that.
It wasn't a jibe.
I get it.
Now, that said, Sonnet, as we have all known, tends to yap a little bit. So when you talk about passing on the token cost, sure, you're not marking up the tokens, but Sonnet chooses a lot of tokens. And that is one thing that we very much noticed playing around with Cursor Agent and GPT-5. And I don't know how much of this is the model and how much of this is their elbow grease there. But it tends to spend a fair amount of time thinking, but then make relatively concise and very good changes. And overall, the prices that we've seen, now I don't know the extent to which they're marking down the tokens versus passing through or like what's going on there, but the prices that we've seen so far, even post-free, dramatic improvement over using Sonnet.
Cool. Yeah. So, and Manuel has some cool questions, which I'll get to as well. Appreciate that. I mean, these are all the same models, y'all, right? So there's no secret, special version of Sonnet for that, Cursor's getting that we're not getting. It's the same API. It's all elbow grease and system prompt tuning, right? And so, none of us want yappy, output. Nobody does. Nobody wants emoji. And so we've tuned a lot of that out, just through system prompt stuff. And that's exactly what Cursor's doing. So I'm saying there is no moat. There's no secrets. This is just hard fucking work. And that's what everybody's doing. And that's why everybody is so close, right? So that's the kind of way we look at it. All right, Manuel, you had some good questions. Okay, what does your workflow look like when an entire team works at speed of AMP? Speed of AMP is cool. So it's funny because I just watched an interview with Kat Wu that Alex did, and she was talking about how they ship for Claude, And it's funny, it's exactly the same at AMP. So we don't have product managers. There is no roadmap. Every week, Torsten, who is our lead engineer on AMP, he says, everybody, here are some things I think we need to work on. And people will tend to pick, a lane around that. But, I just did a quick, check, of course, using the GitHub CLI from AMP, how much are we shipping these days? And we're merging to main about 10 times a day. And that ebbs and flows. Sometimes I've seen it up to 20, 30 times, merging to main just for AMP. And it's pretty chaotic. I mean, I'll tell you, like, I have to rebase all the time. Like, if you don't get your PR merged, like, really fast, you're rebasing, and then it's terrible. So the other thing is, so Slack is really active, right? So we have, we're focusing a lot on our CLI, but I'll tell you that. I think, and I'm trying to push this at AMP, is I'm trying to move us to a CLI only world. I really, really believe the future is probably CLI, and that IDEs, as we know, are going away. Like, I'm pure Ghosty, Tmux, NeoVim, MVChad, and CLI. That's it. Because, like, why would you want all the cruft? Like, why? And then, AMP can script Tmux. Like, so, like, so to me, I just feel like the smart devs are starting to move this way, and it's less surface area, right? So I'm pushing to, like, get rid of the VS Code extension. But it's really fucking cool. Like, yeah, just use Tmux and let your agent loose on it. It's really fun. So I guess what I'm saying is it's chaotic, and people are reporting. We don't have a bug tracker because it's too slow. Like, if you see a bug, you fix it as fast as you can. And if it's not worth fixing, then it must not be that bad of a bug, right? I think the team, so Marcus is saying, what does this mean? So Tmux is just the most, I had never used it until I joined AMP. And then the team at AMP was like, guess what? You can use AMP to help you see what's happening in other panes if you use Tmux. And so Tmux is basically a pane management framework, for Linux. And so what I do is I use Ghosty, which is a fabulous terminal, and then I use Tmux to run all the panes. And actually, I should just show you. Why am I talking? Let me just share my screen. Bear with me while I do this. Kevin, feel free to talk or
Yeah, this is only encouraging. Like, try to screen share more, show don't tell. It's just better for YouTube.
Yeah, instead of just people's heads talking. So I'm just looking for my Ghosty. I'll make this bigger. Bear with me. Actually, going to go up here. Okay.
Wait, can you explain what you just said, Twix?
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen, but someone had a question.
Yeah, sorry, the question was just for you if we have time, or we can push it back. Just do you explain the choice that you made there?
I can't. It will be more obvious in a month.
Cool. All right. So here I have Ghosty running Tmux, and on the right is where I run my agent, and on the left is NeoVim with MVChad. And this is my main work environment now. So I always run AMP update just because we ship so much. Yeah, I literally did this like a couple months ago. It's funny. All right. So the other fun, like, kind of behind the scenes thing is use our TUI. So we have a flag, and this is a beta feature that isn't really out yet, but it's gorgeous. So we're moving away from ink 100% and owning the whole stack on the CLI. And you'll find it's just way smoother. Oh, it's just beautiful. Sorry. So this is AMP. And then what I mean by Tmux, Manuel, go ahead. I saw you come off mute.
I missed it. What's the framework you use for the TUI?
It's all handmade. So we hired a kick-ass dev that is building it from scratch. So no framework.
You mean it's AMP made, right?
Yeah.
AMP
Yeah.
built your.
I think because like if you're serious about a CLI, like you can't be using ink and you know this kind of tooling. It has to be really because you'll if you use the CLI now, you'll see some flickering and stuff, and it's unacceptable. So, all right. So, you know, one thing is so a little some TMUX stuff, right? So and I use WhisperFlow actually all the time. It's another thing. So do something fancy with TMUX to tell me what's in my various panes and sessions. All right, so it's gonna do that. Like another TMUX, this is gonna become a TMUX like session, but you know you hit your precursor key and you hit S, and I've got 2 sessions running. So I'll go into Untangle, which is where I was. Untangle is the startup I'm building. But if we go back over to AMP, you can see a little bit of AMP. Surprise! It's very exciting. Some code. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's just a bunch of elbow grease. So here's your fancy TMUX overview. You have 2 sessions, AMP1 detached and Untangle attached. So, you know, you can actually have AMP or Claude Code or Cursor actually start to mess around with your TMUX pane. So it's kind of fun. So now, Kevin, I can't see the question. So do you want to bubble up a question?
Yeah, let's see. There was a question around how much of AMP is written by AMP.
I would say a lot. I mean, probably this is me guessing, but I would say most of the code is written, you know, 90+%, and then heavily reviewed, right? Um, I think folks are using AMP tab a little bit, but I think most people are allowing the agent to write the code and then heavily review it. Now we have some like killer engineers, right? And I've already gotten just ripped apart in a couple PRs. So I will say it is absolutely not cool at AMP to have AMP write your PR comments. So I've learned that. And you just get flayed if you do that. And then the second thing is you just talk about testing, right? So you're like, hey, here's the short feature description on this PR, and here's the testing I did to do it. So like I think most code is going to be written by AMP. Did you all see Mitchell Hashimoto's kind of big statement around, you know, anybody committing to Ghosty would need to disclose that they used agents, and I thought that was kind of interesting. But I feel like that's going to be most PRs in the future. What else can we chit chat about?
So I'm going to bring it back to some of the early questions. So how do you all, you know, some of the elbow grease around how do you all manage context and decide what to load when and deal with context rot and all those other pieces?
Yeah, boy. Okay, so down here in the bottom right, let's make this a little bigger for you all. Okay, on the bottom right, obviously we've got our almost million context window now, which is just super fun to see. And we're only using 2% of it, clearly. So actually, and I love Cursor. I love the team. This is not at all a derogatory statement about them, but I felt frustrated that I couldn't understand what was happening with the context. To me, it was obfuscated, right? And I didn't like that. Like, I want to know what's in the context. And so I'll tell you at AMP, we do not edit your context. Like, we do not manipulate your context. Like, what you see in AMP is in the context, right? Now, and it's kind of nice to know, okay, if it's in the thread, it's in the context, right? And then, you know, you've got some nice slash commands, which everybody will understand, which is you can compact, and then you can start a new thread if you want. It's all basic stuff. So we don't mess with your context. Now, Marcio, I see you. I'll get right to you. The other thing is that obviously this is the power of subagents, right? So a subagent, you know, doesn't pollute the main context window. So this is the power of using subagents. You know, we use subagents as often as we can because, of course, it's a smart way to work, right? You spin up a subagent, it has its own context window, right? It thinks, it works, it fills up the context window, and then it passes back what it knows. Like, you know, this is obviously, you know, the future of how agentic systems are going to work. But a million tokens is pretty great. I mean, I think all of us though are realizing, well, you can't really use a million. Like, I think you start to notice context rot, once you really get into it, and then that's where you compact and then you keep going. So we don't do fancy pantsy things with your context. Like what you see is what you get. Marcio, I see your hand. Go ahead. I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Ryan. I use Cloud Code a lot, and something I do, I think other people do as well. I put a proxy between Cloud Code and internet, so I can actually see the conversations, the messages that go
Oh, that's
to
fun.
Anthropic. And like it's very powerful because then sometimes I just copy those messages and I put on Gemini. So like if the cloud code is like not behaving the way I want and the messages are not cool, I can put in another model. And it is actually very educative as well because I can see if there is something messed up in the context,
That's cool.
right? So I guess here is a suggestion. Like as a heavy user, I would love to be able to see actually what's going the entire conversation
Yep.
that is going to the models because it allows me to understand more deeply how the tool works.
So the nice thing is with AMP, we actually have these things called threads, and you can literally see. So you can actually see the entire conversation and what was actually sent to the model and back. It's kind of fun.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then what's neat is you can share them, like, so as a team. So I go and look at other people's threads all the time to see how they're prompting, and I'm terrified that they're looking at mine. So.
And that's the entire conversation that goes to the LLM.
Yeah. And you can even see the JSON. It's pretty sweet.
You can dive into
Okay,
subthreads and see the tool. Yeah, that is the thing I miss the most, having been using Cursor Agent
Come on back.
recently. I
Come
know.
on.
Well, give me the power and cost levels that I'm seeing on the other side.
Yeah.
But
No,
I
we're all
mean,
gonna-
as you highlight, there is no moat, right? So I mean, we'll keep trying both.
Yeah. No, keep doing. I mean, it's going to be a battle, y'all. It's not like someone's going to win this, like, sometime soon. I think we're going to see how it shakes out. I think we're just trying to be honest about the token costs, right? And we're trying to admit that this is all hard and no one really knows what they're doing. I mean, the only thing I would say is like the thing that's nice about Cursor, the thing that's nice about Devin, Windsurf, and the thing that's nice about AMP is that we don't have any loyalty to any labs, period. Like, I don't care. I mean, sorry if you're from OpenAI and you see this, I like you. And Anthropic folks, I like you, but I have no loyalty to you. Our loyalty is to our devs. And this is why we didn't ship with GPT-5 on day one. It's like, why would we do that to our devs? Like, this is going to take a long time to get the model harness correct. Like, and you're going to hate it on day one, which everybody did, right? So I think there's more questions. I just want to make sure I'm not ignoring people. Where did they go? Kevin, you want to call it any?
Yeah, let's see. So actually, another part related to the context stuff. So what do you all do in terms of indexing? And actually, that was one of the things that I remember noticing when I first switched to AMP compared to Cursor, is it did a much better job at just uncovering the right files to look at and expose.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Surprise, none. And we don't do any embeddings. There's obviously SourceGraph, the company that makes AMP, has been doing code search for a long time, like years and years and years. And we thought, oh, we could build an MCP, we could build a specified subagent to do code search, and it didn't work very well. So just to be honest about that. And what we find is, the reason why we all love Cloud Code so much when it came out is because it had this deep knowledge of Bash, right? And we have the same thing, right? So when you run AMP on the CLI, it's really fast and really good at finding the right context and then reading and then using the read file tool to read it in. So it's just around, system prompt optimization and using Bash commands to find the right file and then reading it into context. So Yeah, no magic. I don't actually know what Cursor is doing on that. I never figured it out. I think at first they were doing embeddings and a RAG type of thing, but I think everyone's moved away from that.
Yeah, well, and they seem to have gotten better at finding the right stuff, so they probably pulled that in. That actually kind of gets to a question that Manuel put, which is how do you think you'll be able to maintain your position in the race when we can literally just drop product from one day to the next?
We have to keep fighting at delivering the best tool, and there is no moat. I mean, I'm kind of annoyed actually that Anthropic won't adopt the agents.md standard. So this is something we're all trying to do, right? It's like, how annoying is it that you have to have a Claude.md file everywhere? And now you can use Cursor and you can use AMP and you can use Codex, and we all use agents.md. And this is the way it should be. And I think they should join the standard, because why would you make everyone's life worse? So that's my little soapbox moment. I mean, hopefully when you get into AMP, there's a couple things about it you like better, and maybe the company's paying for it and you stay. That's not a very good, defense mechanism. It's the same for everything else. So, I mean, we work very hard, just just like everybody works very hard, and there's no moat.
Next question someone had is, can you expand on what you mean by model hardness? This is from Taha. What kind of customizations do you implement to make sure models reach their full potential?
Yeah, so model harness. What I mean by that is just the huge amount of code that you write around the agent's behavior, right? So, think about, for instance, so here you're seeing R2E on the right. When you type a slash command, what slash commands are useful? Which slash commands are important, right? How do they actually work, right? Are there errors when you have slash commands? Should we implement custom slash commands? There's a huge amount of product choices that go into what you actually ship. All of that is what we call the model harness, right? So you have this intelligence, like how do you set it in the code and write the right stuff to make the developer experience the best? For instance, like if we, I think I just saw a bug actually when I was trying to type the new command, so I'm gonna probably fix that later. Permissions is a good one. So this is how you edit your permissions, right? So it's just a straight up text file. Is this the right developer experience, right? Or do you need something different? So there's a lot of what's around it that I would call the model harness, because it ends up impacting what the model does. So yeah, I wish it was a more scientific answer. It's just all the code you write to make AMP act the way it does. And I really don't think you can swap out models. This is why I'm so against model selection. I think it's terrible for developers. Like, why would you let somebody use a model that your entire agent and model harness is not prepared, to optimize for? You just wouldn't, right? So that's kind of where we stand on that.
There's another question related to your code exploration, which it was, so pure bash scripts, nothing fancy like AST grep for structured code search, replacement, things like that.
Yep. Yeah. Just straight up bash, making sure the models are really smart when to call those tools. This is actually something I really like. Actually don't use I don't use the permissions very much. So, okay, so this is kind of something that we realize people really want is shell mode, right? So if you'll notice on the bottom right, I just went in shell mode. So now, you can just type shell commands right into the agent conversation. And the cool thing is that's read into context, right? So I can do get status, for instance. I keep forgetting Control S. Okay. And now I can say, what's our get status based on what I just did? Like, can it see it? say, yeah, you just ran, get status. So I think this is kind of what I mean by elbow grease, like just trying to figure out what is the best developer experience. Lol, I do shell mode by accident all the time. That's probably bad, right?
Oh, it's terrible. Every time, because I'm also, yeah, I'm in Tmux, I'm hopping around between panel to panel and I'm trying to look at something over there and then it's like, oh, wait,
Oh,
you want me to run LS? What? No, yes. So another question from Yikes, and I'm gonna attempt to, I like Yikes is a very particular voice, so I'm gonna attempt to read it in a Yikes voice. But how much XML prompting are you doing in sysprompt? Claude, load that shit.
That was pretty good. It was like mid-tier, I would say. So we don't use a lot of XML prompting. I think there is some, but we're not heavy into XML prompting. Like if I was to show you our system prompt, Yikes says, I'll take it. I think Kevin tried for you. So yeah, we're not super hardcore on XML prompting. So this is what I think everybody wants everybody to say there's some secret, and there's really not. So it's really just, code, use AMP all the time. And when you see stuff that's super annoying, fix it. But there is these bigger decisions to make around surface area, and having an IDE, having a VS Code extension, having a CLI, having a web interface, having an SDK. This is all surface area that you have to defend, improve, and that makes it harder. So we're always trying to cut down surface area. Yikes is entertaining. Are they on camera? No.
No,
Never.
I didn't want to go all the way over to my desk, but I'm on camera in spirit.
Who you speak?
I
love
do
it.
sometimes.
Sometimes today. Because you're so polite and you're putting up your hand, Marcio, why don't you go next? And how do you pronounce your name?
You got it, Marcio. You got it, Marcio.
Marcio.
So yeah. But yeah, Marcio, it works fine. People in America sometimes call me Marshall or Mauricio. That's worse. But anyways, going to talk more about work. Something that like my team struggles sometimes is when they have agents empty files through the hierarchy. They don't fully understand when those files get to the conversation or not. And I'm just getting familiar with AMP right now, but I wonder, like, besides looking at the output conversation, if there is like is actually expressive when you get to like a agents MG file or something like that.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm noticing this is a terrible tool call error. So this is GPT-5. Sorry, and I'll get to it. This is exactly the kind of stuff we're seeing that is not nice, right? Just tons of like repetitive tool calls that are airing out. This is frustrating. And this is why it's like I'm just going to go back to Sonnet, and we'll get there. I mean, I think it'll get better, but sorry, I just couldn't deal with that. Okay. I think I got it. So Marcio, you're sort of saying, when you have nested agents.md files, and then I got so distracted by all those tool errors, I didn't.
No, that's okay, because sometimes it's not very clear to the team when those files are called or not.
Okay. So for any agent you're using, the top level file will always be put into context, always. And it happens every call. So I think you need to understand that that's being inserted. That's why you want your agents.md file to not be huge. You want it to be pretty concise. And then, if you go into a subdirectory and you're editing a file in a subdirectory, then that MD file will also be pulled in. So
I can give a more specific example. So for example, what they do is they create empty folders just with agents.md or claw.md files. And like they explain in the root agents.md, if you are going to implement like a kill, go to this directory. If I'm gonna implement like a Lambda, build on this directory, and they have the expectation that it's gonna read that file before creating that, but it actually doesn't.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
there's like other kind of nuances that when you have a big project, like it's just because it seems to be like such a easy rule, but because the is actually the tooling is actually creating the file in a folder that doesn't exist, the expectation is different.
Yeah. I think part of what you're explaining is that there is expected behavior. The agents don't always match it. It depends which agent you're using, right? It depends if you're on the CLI versus the VS Code extension, versus a web interface versus a background agent. It's pretty messy right now. And, we're trying to figure out what is the optimal behavior for most devs that use it. Like, in my opinion, it feels like, okay, your agents.md file at the top level is very high level. How do you run tests? How do you build kind of stuff? Like, what's our stack? Anything like that you would tell a junior dev that walked in on day one, like, hey, this is stuff you always need to know. Keep it short, keep it sweet. And then in folders, you would expect there to be context specific instructions, right? And that those would get read into, the context as soon as the agent started a read file tool call that was in a new directory, right? That's what should happen. I actually want to dig into how AMP does that because I don't actually know. So,
Cool.
So I've
Thank
got
you.
to run in probably like maybe 5 minutes. So what other questions should we tackle, Kevin?
Good question. Do we have any more questions in the chat? Things I didn't catch as they went by. If you have a question that hasn't been answered, repost it, and otherwise I'm gonna just ask some questions that are a little more speculative.
Do it.
So I'd love to get a sense of where do you what do you see as the frontier in this stuff? Like what is nobody doing quite yet that you guys are pushing towards?
So I think there's a couple things. I think number one is we're thinking about decreasing surface area, and getting really serious about that. And so do we really want a VS Code extension? Maybe we do, but I think we're starting to get serious about that decision. Building the CLI from scratch, right? The TUI from scratch, right? Versus relying on, frameworks like Ink. There's a lot of interesting things to talk around. We call it alloys, like this idea of blending models together, where maybe we start to allow the agent to decide, which models it's using. And then maybe we randomly choose, and maybe there's a lot of and I think this term is kind of coming to the forefront of alloying models together. That's something we're thinking a lot about. We're all wondering will GPT-5 work? I mean, it's cheaper, so we'd love to use it. Which means we could pass that cost on to you. It'd be cheaper for you. So those are a couple of the high level things we're thinking about, really excited about. We're building there's one big feature I'm really excited about. I'm probably not allowed to talk about right now, but it wouldn't blow your mind, but I'm excited about it because I think people want it. I wish I could say what it was.
When will we be able to find out?
It's in beta now, so it's very soon. Quinn's working on it himself, which is kind of fun. It's fun to be at a company where, wow, the founders are like hyper technical. Like Quinn just goes into a hole sometimes in codes and doesn't do CEO stuff for a while. So excited about that feature. We're obviously thinking about how can people build with AMP, right? Programmatically, like that's really exciting. I think, we have the -X flag, so you can run AMP, in execute mode, and you can actually run it, as a bash command, and which is really unlocks a lot of things, but it'd be better if you could run it programmatically. So yeah, some exciting things, but mostly it's just hard freaking work, bunch of PRs, go as fast as we can.
All right. A couple other things that were dropped in there. So are there any source graph goodies that you all use inside of AMP, or is it all just bash scripts, rip grep, etc.?
I mean, I'm just going to put it in here. If you're going to use AMP, just please try the TUI and give us feedback. So just run it like that. And I would not use GPT-5 right now. I think that it's just not great yet. So
Cool.
yeah.
Next question that people dropped was Marcus asked, what's the eng team size you need for building and maintaining a tool like AMP?
Not big. You know, we've got a lot of engineers because obviously we have all the code search tools on the source graph side. But I think the core AMP team, just doesn't have to be that big. And actually, the bigger it is, the more you get slowed down. So we're probably at optimal size. It feels like. I actually would have to do the account. People from AMP are gonna, skewer me for getting this number wrong. But I mean, it feels like, I don't know, there's maybe 20 of us or something.
Next question. I don't know if this is a thing you've tackled, but how do I psychologically prepare my manager for the wide variance of usage-based building
Oh man.
or
But
billing?
tell them, I mean, I think any manager who is thinking about token costs is like a dinosaur that needs to get fired. Like there's just like, think about how bad it is that you would restrict your output. So I guess that's more of my emotional reaction. I would just say, well, do you want me to ship like 10x the amount of code and just be better all around? Like, why? Think about how much it would cost to hire an engineer. Like, what the hell? Like, what the hell? Like, even if you spent $5,000 a month, which people aren't doing, on tokens, it's still ridiculously cheap. So
Next question was, is AMP performing well with Swift?
I don't know. I've never written a line of Swift in my whole life. and I haven't looked at our logs. Sorry. So I hope so. I like Scott's comment. Find somewhere that gives you unlimited API budget. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are hiring now and saying you get unlimited, Cursor, you get unlimited AMP, and please just go work at those places, because why would you want to work anywhere else?
Yeah, come work for me.
You seem like a great, smart person. So
There we go. Yeah, you know it. I'm actually going to be putting an engineering job posting up shortly. The one I've got is a little stale, but if you've got a data infra background, like, reach out to me.
tell them that they get unlimited AMP, okay? And then it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I was going to go and look and see how much we spent on AMP recently, but actually I don't know if I want to make that public. I can show you the cliff where it dropped off when Cursor GPT-5 came into our.
I mean, listen, it's hard to compete with VC funded tokens. Like we're not going to do that.
Yeah. Because there was the question of, other than the TUI, which you've mentioned, is there a feature or capability you wish people used more?
We're putting up a lot of new slash commands, so I'd love for you to try the slash commands and see what you think. If they're useful, which ones do you like? Which ones don't you like? And so I'm just Ryan Carson on X. Please just DM me. Like, I want to hear all the feedback. All the things you hate, things you love. Just tell me. Would love to hear it.
All right. I think you said you need to run. Does anybody have any other last questions? Do you want to leave us with anything in particular?
No, just, thanks for being here. Like, what a time to be alive, where we have intelligence, on an API. It's just, I can't believe we're here. I spent a decade of my life teaching people how to code at Treehouse. And, we dreamed about everybody having a one-on-one tutor that was affordable, right? And it just didn't exist. So what a time to be alive. I'm so thankful to be here. And wow, isn't it amazing we're here and that we all know how to code right now? What an amazing thing.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you, everybody who came, put in your questions. Reminder, you all are what makes this work. You don't have to be as polished of a presenter, speaker, etc. as Ryan is to get up here and share something. It doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to even be useful. It just has to be interesting. So we're looking for folks. I think next week is open. So if you have a topic you want to bring, if you are just getting turned on to AmpCode, you want to go play around with it and come back and give us the here's what I learned and here's how it went for me, that's up for grabs. So cheers, y'all, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody. See you around.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.